Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Horse Racing Show. I'm Kenny Rice. We have a great show for you today. This episode number 65. By the way, you can go back to YouTube and check out all the previous ones if you want. We have returning guests today, Rob Hyland, the multiple Emmy award-winning producer from NBC, and Darren Rogers, the director of communications from Churchill Downs. We'll be talking about what would have been the first Saturday in May as we know it, but it's still going to be there. NBC is going to be showing the Kentucky Derby from 2015, and there'll be updates from Mike Tirico, Randy Moss, and Jerry Bailey, and myself about what's going on right now in the horse racing world. That's from 3 to 6 this coming Saturday Eastern Time. Ben Chafin's on lead guitar. Welcome in, Ben.
Hello, Kenny.
And our researcher extraordinaire, Mr. Thomas Kenny. Thomas, how are you?
Doing well.
Okay, so now the Kentucky Derby is the longest running sporting event in the United States. It keeps going and going and going. But there's some others out there. It's kind of interesting, Thomas, and how they've come about and evolved, and some of them didn't make it as long as the Derby, obviously.
Well, like you said, the Kentucky Derby has been being run since 1875, every single year. Not a single break, even for, war, peace, whatever.
Yeah.
But following closely behind that, starting in 1881, is the U.S. Open of the tennis variety, which also has not had an interruption since its founding in 1881.
Mm-hmm.
The U.S. Open of golf, also starting in 1895, although it did break for World War I and II, celebrated its 100th event in the year 2000. Other notable ones like the World Series did take a break for the Players' Strike. The Rose Bowl, which was the first college football postseason game ever, began in 1902. But seeing as how Michigan routed Stanford 49-0, not many people were excited for it to come back, which is why it didn't come back until 1916.
Those lopsided games. And that was back in the day when, like, the powerhouses were in the Midwest and the East, and you didn't have that much on the West Coast. And that certainly showed that. So we've got these events that have been with us that are part of the fabric of America, even if you're not necessarily a big fan of the sport, you're familiar with it, like the Rose Bowl, still the granddaddy of them all. And that's why it's been around the longest. And the Kentucky Derby, the special of that, the U.S. Open. That's a good list you got there, Thomas. That's a nice list. And the Derby this year, is it going to be different? Yeah, it's going to be different. It's going to be different because it's run in September. So no matter who comes out of this race this weekend in Arkansas, even if they look like the next Pharaoh or the next Justify, it's going to be a long way to that Derby. When we come back, Rob Hyland will join us from NBC Sports. We'll be talking about the coverage that NBC is giving the Derby this weekend, an update on what's happening now in the sport, and a look back on one of the great moments in the Derby. You're listening or watching, depending on which outlet you are attending to this week with us, the Horse Racing Show. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to the Horse Racing Show. I'm Kenny Rice. Glad that you've tuned in this week on whichever outlet you're listening to, YouTube or radio, iHeart, Stitcher, whatever. This is episode number 65, if you can believe it. And, of course, this time of the year, we're usually talking about, this thing that happens in Louisville, Kentucky on the first Saturday in May. A lot has changed, but something hasn't. NBC will still be talking about the Kentucky Derby this week. And to talk more about that is a great friend of mine. He is a multiple Emmy Award and Eclipse Award winning producer, Rob Hyland. Rob, welcome back into the show.
Kenny, it's great to be back.
And, we're talking Derby. It's great that we can still talk Derby, isn't it? Even though we're hopefully going to have it the first Saturday in September, NBC will have a Derby this Saturday.
Yeah, again, fingers crossed we have a Derby in September 5th, but we've got a great program planned for this Saturday from 3 to 6. We're going to look back the 5-year anniversary of American Pharoah's impressive win in Louisville. And this entire spring, we're going to document Pharoah's Triple Crown run. So 2 weeks from now, we'll have a broadcast window looking at his Preakness win, and then 3 weeks later, his Belmont win. But it's not just the playback of the 2015 Derby. It's also, an interview with Bob Baffert and Mike Smith. It's yours truly. Kenny, you're going to be a part of the show. Opening the show from Churchill Downs on Saturday. We've got a ton of celebrity messages that have been sent in from people and how much the Derby means to them. We've got a really cool virtual Triple Crown race simulation, pitting all 13 Triple Crown winners against each other. It's a company over in England that did this earlier in the spring on a major horse race in the UK. And we think it'll be a lot of fun. So a lot of fun elements and looking forward to, having Derby content on this first Saturday in May. But I'll tell you what, it's as I was going back and forth yesterday with Drew Esikoff, our Triple Crown director, I was so looking forward to my itinerary that was still in my phone telling me I was leaving for Louisville's airport at 11 a.m. yesterday morning. But unfortunately, that is not the case.
It just is so different on so many levels, pal. But, the good thing about this, what I like, Rob, is I catch myself now. I don't know if you do. Like, I'm watching some old NFL and Major League Baseball games. I saw Tom Seaver win his 300th game the other day. I'm thinking David Tyree is not going to make this catch again, even though I've seen it 100 times. I know they're going to give the ball to Marshawn Lynch and let him just run it in and beat the Patriots. I just know this. Do you catch yourself watching these games even though you know everything?
I do. I was going back and forth with the Sunday Night Football producer, Freddie Godelli, and we did a week of sort of the best of Sunday night games a couple of weeks back. And the second I turned it on each night, I couldn't turn it off. I knew the result. I was a part of those productions. But, I find myself flipping to every network. And, it just brings you back to a moment in time where you remember it as a fan or if you were a part of the production. And, I've been hooked with a lot of archival sporting moments.
Was it an easy pick, the 2015 Derby, to look back on the Triple Crown start of American Pharoah?
Yeah, no brainer, Kenny. I mean, for a couple of reasons. One, first horse in 37 years to pull it off, number one. Number two, if you remember, we haven't been blessed with great weather in Louisville in recent years. That was a spectacular afternoon, looked great on television. The pageantry of the day was at its finest in terms of our ability to showcase it with aerials and jib cameras and, just beautiful blue skies and great storylines that day. Not only Pharoah and Bob Baffert and Victor Espinoza, but, Gary Stevens and a horse named Firing Line. Just a lot of really cool storylines in that year's Derby. And I'm really excited to listen. I've watched it back now a few times for this post-production process, the editing of the show. And I can't wait to get home. We're going to pre-tape a few segments on Saturday morning to make it sort of current for the Arkansas Derby on Saturday evening. Jerry and Randy are going to give their take on the Arkansas Derby, and we're waiting until Saturday to do that. And as I mentioned earlier, you're going to be a part of the opening to the show in a very quiet and empty Churchill Downs on Derby Day. But I can't wait to get back home and watch the show back. And I think a lot of people around the country are going to be doing the same. We're working very closely with our partners at Churchill Downs to really get the message out there that, we want to see your pictures on Derby Day, and we're going to integrate them toward the end of the show of people having Derby parties at home. This will be the first Derby I've watched on television. Gosh, I want to say since FUPEG back in, 2000? It's been a while. Yeah, it's been a while since I've been home to watch a Derby, so it'll be strange, but looking forward to it.
Talking with Rob Hyland, who is the multiple Eclipse Award and Emmy Award-winning producer with NBC. He's a producer of all the Triple Crowns, and he is going to be producing a lot of this week's Derby coverage, and also we're going to show the 2015 Derby. But you're going to be very active with Randy and Jerry, Mike Tirico, and all of us getting ready for this. And, Rob, I noticed it's going to be, and wouldn't you know it, it's supposed to be 72 and sunny this week at Churchill Downs.
You know what? I sent out a group text to our production team on Monday morning at about 5 a.m. when I got up, and I sent them a still frame of the forecast of the week, and I highlighted Saturday, 72 and partly cloudy. It's been a while since we've had one of those, Kenny.
I'm telling you, Rob, if in the craziest hypothetical, somehow that Derby is going to be held for real this Saturday, if they could change everything now, I guarantee it would rain.
You're probably right. You're probably right.
I remember the Justified Derby especially. I think that's the only event I've ever worked for. I don't think there was a let up at all. It rained all day long.
I remember Eddie Olczyk got back to the compound from that, and he just threw his shoes in the garbage on the way to his car. But hey, you know what? I would take that in a heartbeat. I would take lightning, thunder. I would take anything right now to be a part of the Derby.
Yeah.
As someone, you're a Kentuckian and you know what this race means to the state and to people that love the sport. But, I've been a part of every single one of NBC's Derby since 2001. And it's really sort of, for me, that the spring is sort of all building up to the first Saturday in May. And, it just the whole rhythm of this time of year has totally been, changed. And again, listen, we're dealing with some crazy stuff globally right now. And I hope everyone's safe and sound. But it's an interesting phenomenon waking up on Monday morning of Derby week and not getting on that plane and being home. But listen, I cannot wait till we do get a chance to celebrate the Kentucky Derby and continue racing in general.
And, I think, too, Rob, that millions of people, and I think millions now here in Kentucky and the people that follow horse racing, they might take a step back and say, hold on a minute. But if you really start looking at the numbers that the Kentucky Derby draws compared to other horse races or even several other sporting events, for many of Americans out there, the start of the horse racing season is the Kentucky Derby. They may have an idea of who won the Arkansas or Florida or Bluegrass or whatever, but it's the Derby. That's horse racing to them.
You're right. And listen, for the average fan, which is really the NBC television audience, it just represents so many amazing, things. It's such a truly American event. It's a spectacle, like I mentioned before. It signifies sort of the beginning of summer, midpoint to late point of spring, and just represents so much hope. It's a giant part of the racing calendar. And as you ask any trainer, jockey, or owner, the one race they want to win, it's the Kentucky Derby.
And Rob, it's going to be interesting, isn't it? If all goes well, and let's certainly hope it does, and we're there in the first Saturday in September, like you say, the whole calendar of sports dramatically changed this year because I believe the Derby is the most watched sporting event after the Super Bowl. And you're coming off the Final Four, and you're coming off the Masters, and everything's kind of fallen in place. And now here's the Derby. It's kind of like the really start of spring. And now all that's going to change, and you're going to be going into football season. We hope people are going to be talking about, Notre Dame and Alabama and Clemson and the NFL and everything else.
You're right. The sports calendar, not just for horse racing, but for every sport, has been turned upside down. And I think the puzzle pieces of where every sporting event land are still being determined. We still, at this point, don't know, where the Preakness and Belmont will land, although there are suggested dates. No one's announced anything. So, I think for anyone involved in racing specifically, the way the summer schedule will shake out once those other two classics land with dates, I think it's going to be really interesting. The Haskell and the Travers and other major summer races and the Breeders' Cup Classic, which, has not moved. But again, there are so many moving parts associated for not just horse racing, every sport that, you got to really treat this like a moving target and continue to refocus your aim.
We're talking with Rob Hyland of NBC Sports. We'll talk more with Rob and about how a Derby all comes together. It's a fascinating process that I'm honored to be a part of for several years now. All that when we come right back here on the Horse Racing Show. Stay with us. And welcome back to the Horse Racing Show. I'm Kenny Rice. Thanks for your time this week. Glad to have with us a guy who's been a great friend to me over the years. He is my boss with NBC Sports. He is Rob Hyland, the multiple Emmy Award and Eclipse Award winning producer, who at this time of the year is usually not sleeping at all because he's going to be producing the Kentucky Derby. So, Rob, have you got any naps in at least this week?
Oh, man. Sounds really good. No, actually, been teaching my girls, their school assignments. So I've been pretty busy. I'd like a nap, to be honest with you. But this world we're living in now, between Zoom work meetings and Zoom school meetings for my two girls, Chloe and Audrey, it's definitely kept my hands full.
How are you as the teacher of Chloe and Audrey? Did they like you as the teacher?
Yeah, I think they do, but it's hard work. Listen, I have so much respect for teachers, and listen, just the silver lining in this crazy time we're all living in across this world is the amount of time every family is getting to spend with each other. I mean, for some, maybe that's a bad thing, but for me, having the opportunity to spend so much time with my girls has been a true blessing. And listen, I was heartbroken for two reasons. When the sports calendar came out, my daughter Chloe was supposed to have her first communion on Saturday, May 2nd, and I was going to miss that obviously because of the Kentucky Derby. And my younger daughter Audrey will turn 7 years old this summer when I was supposed to be in Tokyo for the Summer Olympics. So I get to be around for two of those at least this calendar year, and I'm really excited about that.
Well, that's nice. You know what? Sometimes that's good that it works out that way. I'm happy for that.
I appreciate that.
And, some would say, some of us cynics in this business would say, well, you've worked with all these announcers for years, so you're used to working with children and bruised egos and all that.
That's true. My little girls are a handful, and I've dealt with some handfuls over the years, but all part of the process.
Well, the way you bring everything together, and I was just watching a seminar that you had with the NBC Sports Group and all the other producers and directors and all watching this is, it is fascinating behind the scenes, and for me to be a part of this thing, good gracious, Rob, going on 20 years, that's hard to believe. Right? Yeah, but anyway, you start planning. I know you said you already watched the show that's going to be on this weekend. You've been already reviewing everything of the 2015 Derby, but that's part of your whole preparation that you start, I guess, first of the year, looking back on last year's Derby and doing all the planning to be ready for the first Saturday in May, regardless of the situation.
Yeah, you're right, Kenny. My professional calendar in the fall involves college football, Notre Dame on Saturdays, and then NFL football night in America and Sunday Night Football on Sundays. And once the NFL season ends after the Super Bowl, regardless of which network has it, I take about a week to 10 days to kind of put a bow on the NFL season. And then director Drew Esikoff and I plan a date sometime in early February to get together and watch back the prior year's Kentucky Derby tip to tail. He came over this year. We had some sandwiches and sat down for 5 straight hours and watched it and really came up with, our pie in the sky ideas. What would we want to change? It's the same show every year, essentially. At 6:45, you're going to have 20 horses leaving the gate. But what do you do to dress it a little differently, to introduce a new technology? So we did that in early February, and then at the end of February, I got our entire team of about 65 men and women that work on the production side of the show together to watch that same telecast. We do it over 2 days, so I don't have to keep people held hostage for 5 straight hours. And then every subsequent week, every Wednesday after that, we get together and I challenge every member to come up with sort of their one big idea for the Kentucky Derby. If you could change something, if you could enhance something, if you do something more, what would it be? And then we synthesize those ideas and put a plan into action. And we update graphics. We come up with a feature plan. We come up with a research plan, a programming plan, a company plan in terms of, hey, what West Coast movies need to be promoted during the show? What celebrity is going to be a part of the show? Which Olympian is going to come to the Derby to, help promote the Olympics? There's so many tentacles involved with an event like the Kentucky Derby that, every part of our company, NBC Universal, wants a piece of, and it's really balancing all those and making sure we hit every agenda associated with this massive property.
I can't think of another sport either, Rob. Talking with Rob Hyland, the multiple award winner. Matter of fact, Rob is so good he won 2 Emmy Awards when we had that commercial break. But you keep winning these Emmys, you win these Eclipse. I've been happy to be part of the Eclipse award-winning NBC team for several years now. But you tell the story in increments more, I think, than any other sport. In other words, I'm going to watch the first quarter of the Super Bowl and the second quarter. I'm watching the buildup. I'm going to watch the first half of the NCAA championship game. I love basketball. I'm going to watch all that. In horse racing, people are going to tune in and they're not going to be like I don't think everybody's watching at 3. A few people I know, they're having derby parties, but you're not going to be watching at 3 that are watching at 5 that are watching when they finally go to the post at 6. And I don't know if you have that kind of buildup. I'm trying to think for any other sports. You watch the Masters just pretty much hold a whole coverage. I don't know of any other sport but the Derby where you have that kind of breakup in the action, if you'll say action, so to speak.
You're right, Kenny. I mean, maybe the Super Bowl pregame. The Super Bowl pregames now have gotten so long. But as I told anyone that wants to listen, the audience watching at 2:30 on NBC when we come on the air is significantly different and smaller than the audience watching at 3:30, 4:30, 5:30, and then again 6:30 when there are actually horses on the track for the Kentucky Derby. So you really have to make sure you reset the main storylines for those millions of people coming in every 15 minutes, every half hour, every hour. And, do it in new and creative ways. You don't want to repeat verbatim what you said at 2:30, but is there another entry point into the same sort of theme that, for example, Bob Baffert having a couple of Derby contenders? How do you do it differently? Do you flip the order of the two horses? Sure. Do you start with a jockey? Sure. But even, Kenny, you've been part of this. I mean, you're our leadoff hitter in terms of reporter whips, and you'll constantly reset the main storyline of the day being at the Derby favorites barn, but you don't say the exact same thing every time we go to you, although the message you're trying to get out is very similar in terms of the overall storyline. So, yeah, you got to remember your audience is growing, it's building, and as the day goes on, it's getting more and more casual. The viewer at 2:30 is a hardcore Derby fan. The viewer at 6 o'clock wants to see the spectacle and learn a story. So that's really how we approach it.
And I think this week at 3 o'clock again, it's going to be on NBC, 3 o'clock Eastern time. You can watch back the Derby of 2015, the great start of the Triple Crown run for American Pharoah. And the virtual Triple Crown, I think, Rob, will get a lot of attention. All 13 Triple Crown winners going head-to-head in this virtual world of the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. Jerry and Randy have already we had a production call yesterday afternoon, and they have very different opinions of who should be winning this race. And they have not seen the simulation, and they will not see the simulation until Saturday. It's literally going to be seen by about 5 people before this airs in the entire world. But I look forward to their back and forth and to seeing the results. Everyone says, it's got to be Secretariat. But, actually, Jerry Bailey has a very different opinion. So we will see.
That is it. Yeah, because, I guarantee Secretariat would be made the favorite. And I know nothing else about it, okay? I just know, I know who 13 Triple Crown winners are. But yeah. That'll be fun, and I think it's fun, and I'm really happy that the show is going to be on, and I'm happy you're going to get to go to communion, the first communion this weekend.
Well, you know what? Actually, it's been postponed.
Well, actually, I was going to say, do you do that? Yeah, you don't do that virtually, do you? You don't do that by Zoom.
I wish, but now Chloe's going to have to wait till another date. So that's okay, though. Everyone's safe and sound, and that's all that really matters right now.
Yeah, and I've learned about Zoom because we celebrated Rob's birthday on Monday, by the way. We had a surprise photo bomb of the whole crew that Lindsay Shanzer
awesome.
Put together.
Awesome.
So see, I'm learning. Look at us. We're becoming technological wizards, aren't we? Look at us.
You have been becoming technological wizards, but it really didn't help your voices, though. That was a pretty brutal rendition, although I appreciated
it. Yeah, singing is never going to be a second option for most of us.
No.
Rob, I appreciate your time, pal. It's great to catch up. I look forward to the day when we see each other in person, which I hope is much sooner than later.
Me too, Kenny. Take care.
Okay, you too, Rob. Thanks, my friend. And everybody be tuning in to NBC this Saturday at 3 o'clock. We'll have more of the Horse Racing Show when we come back. Welcome back to the Horse Racing Show. I'm Kenny Rice. Thank you for tuning in again this week as we approach the first Saturday in May, and we talk to this guy every year. Well, okay, we've done the show 2 years, but we keep the tradition going. He is a good friend of mine. He is the Director of Communications at Churchill Downs, which is never an easy time of the year. I don't know if it's even more difficult this year, even though there's a Kentucky Derby that's coming up in September, because I'm sure he's been asked a lot of questions. We'll ask some more of him. He joins us now. It's Darren Rogers. Darren, welcome in.
Kenny, how are you, pal? Good to be with you.
I'm good. I imagine you probably in some ways have had almost as many calls as you usually get about this time of the year. Everybody wanting to know what's going on, and can you tell me the latest?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're working hard here at Churchill Downs to plan for a great Kentucky Derby on September the 5th. Simultaneously, we're in constant and ongoing communications with state and local officials and public health experts about reopening our stable area and conducting spectator-free racing, under strict guidelines in the very near future. So we haven't slowed down a bit. I think it's like a lot of us, we're all making different adjustments, and sometimes we have some very difficult but necessary decisions to make. But again, it's not unique to Churchill Downs or the Kentucky Derby. We're all diligently, trying to get through this together.
And as most people know, we taped this show, and I guess Mark Guilfoyle was on about a month or so ago, and I was talking about, it was great that Turfway Park was still going. I think like 2 days later, about the time this show aired, that's when they closed from showing racing. So it's such a fluid situation. I just don't ask anyone anymore, give me any specifics, because sometimes they overemphasize fluid situation, but I don't think we've ever been in anything like this where everything can change within a day. That's why, you just kind of roll with it. It's what is my theory when people ask me what I think is going to happen.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're obviously in a very unique position. Horse racing is a agricultural business and serves as the prime, economic driver for thousands of individuals here in the Commonwealth. And, the thoroughbreds that we cherish, they need constant care. And, it's a testament that, during this pandemic that, our horsemen, they've consistently cared for them in their winter and spring locales, whether it's, down in New Orleans at Fairgrounds, or Gulfstream Park in Florida, or Oaklawn Park in Hot Springs. And we're working hard to reopen in a responsible and safe environment, under some very strict protocols. We've worked with the other tracks here in Kentucky to identify those specific protocols and mitigate the risks, for any stabling and racing. And when that does resume, and again, like you said, we're working hour by hour, but a multitude of precautions and procedures based on, criteria that's set by public health officials, that'll be implemented to ensure the safety of, the employees, the stakeholders, and the horses.
And, as far as this time of the year, you're never sleeping. It's like 28 hours a day you have to work and fulfill, like 2,000 press credentials.
Yeah.
So what's it like this week for you, Darren? Do you get a sleep
it's very,
a little bit?
It's I wish I could say I've been sleeping in. That's not the case. We're just working in a different fashion now, albeit it's not the long days that we endure. It's just been strange this time of year to not take a call from you and others and not start my conversation by saying Happy Derby. I mean, that's something I've done in the month of April leading up to the first Saturday in May, for the last decade or so. And it seems bizarre. Now, I guess I can say Happy Virtual Derby, but it has been strange, like so many others. And you look at the advanced forecast, and of course it's sunny and 75 for the first Saturday in May. So, it's just been bizarre. I think, like for a lot of us, we're all adjusting to new normals and, getting through this together. But it's still surreal to think this coming Saturday at Churchill Downs, it'll be an empty grandstand on the first Saturday in May. It just seems bizarre. It hadn't happened, since the last time the Derby was held outside the first Saturday in May was June 9th of 1945. And, that was exiting World War II. And earlier that year, for I think it was 42, 43, 44, the, government officials, were trying to delay and shut down the Derby. But Colonel Matt Wynn fought hard for that. And one of the reasons was, people often took trains from different locales around the country to get to Churchill Downs, and that's burning fuel and gasoline. And so they were, the 43 Derby was the streetcar Derby, where they only had 60,000 people in attendance, and it was only locals. They pretty much banned out of towners. But in early 1945, I think it was the Secretary of Defense for the United States banned all of horse racing across the country to conserve those efforts. And it was basically, like I said, to conserve fuel in the train cars, as horses would travel from track to track. But VE Day was, I think it was May 8th, or May 7th, May 8th of 1945. Victory in Europe was declared, and the very next day they lifted the ban. And 1 month later, June 9th of 1945, that's when Colonel Matt Wynn staged that year's Derby. So, we've got a 145-year streak alive, and we're planning to maintain it in some way, shape, or form, moving it to Labor Day on September 5th, Labor Day weekend.
We were talking about this streak earlier. It's the longest streak of a continuous sport. That's kind of fascinating.
It is.
You started thinking about, even like a World Series. Well, wait a minute. They had a player strike, of course, in their early 90s. That stops. For wartime, a lot of events stopped. Our researcher, Thomas Kenny, came up with this. When they started the Rose Bowl, it was such a blowout the first year. When they had it, they had to wait like another 5 or 6 years. Nobody cared. They started to play the game again. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't get a streak. It's the oldest continuously held sporting event, a major sporting event here in the United States. I love number two. Number 2 is the Westminster Dog Show. It's not far behind. Yeah. But you don't survive and continue for 145 consecutive years without being resilient. And we're going to remain resilient in this difficult time and how we're going through this. It's a Derby to this community, and outside of Louisville as well, to so many folks. But Louisville in particular, it's so much more than a 2-minute horse race. I mean, it's a 2-week whirlwind of celebrations and events. It has a $400 million economic impact to the area. It's a communal event for so many of us, Kenny. And this is a time where we get a chance to often reunite with old friends to celebrate.
Yeah, exactly.
I get to see you once a year, and other members of the media, but you think of the fans that have been in box seats. They share boxes next to one another. The same groups of people have picnics in the infield. It's a communal event, and we're going to be resilient, and we're going to do this in a safe and responsible manner. But it's a streak that we intend to keep.
We're talking with Darren Rogers, the outstanding communications director for Churchill Downs. If it weren't for Darren, Mind That Bird would have never won the Derby. Okay, that might be a bit of a stretch, but it's a great story. And how's that for a tease? Stay with us. We'll talk about that and more right here on the Horse Racing Show. Welcome back to the Horse Racing Show. I'm Kenny Rice. Glad that you're with us this week. With me is my friend Darren Rogers, who's a communications director for Churchill Downs. Of course, a different kind of first Saturday in May, but there will be a Kentucky Derby on NBC. It'll be at 3 o'clock Eastern time this Saturday, 3 to 6. It's going to show the start of that great Triple Crown won in 2015, the Triple Crown run of American Pharoah, and there's going to be a virtual derby in there where all 13 of the Triple Crown winners will be pitted against each other as only we can in the Triple Crown world. So do you like War Emblem or Citation or Secretariat or Pharaoh or Justify? I don't know who's going to win, Darren. I don't know if they've even told you, but it's just going to be fun. I like that.
It is fun. It's, we have a whole full day of online festivities planned, for interaction for the Kentucky Derby at home. And, Churchill Downs has pledged to match up to $1 million of donations with funds directed directly to Team Kentucky and direct relief. And then we've also got some funds earmarked for the RAIN Fund, which is a relief for equine industry needs. It benefits, workers on the backside whose livelihood have been impacted by this. But we just think it's going to be a fun race, an animated race created by Inspired Entertainment. And, we'll have to see who wins. It's going to be fun. I think it's going to air about 5:45 within the broadcast.
Yeah, we Rob Hyland was on. We were talking with him, and Rob well, of course, our producer at NBC Sports, and he's not giving anything away, but he seems to think that like Jerry Bailey and Randy Moss, they may, of course, they'll debate on anything. These guys, But they think that they're not, Bailey's not giving it up, that it's a lock, that it's going to be Secretariat.
No, it's not. No, it's in fact, it's not. What there's going to be different horses are going to have different win probabilities, but you think of it like the NBA draft. It's like if you had 100 numbered balls in a bin, and one is drawn to determine the winner. The favorite might have 20 balls, right? Mm-hmm. And the horse deemed to be the longest shot in the field might only have 2 balls, but it's still a random draw. And that's a perfect segue into Mind That Bird. Mind That Bird might only had 2 balls in the bin of 100, but his number came up back in 2009.
Well, I was going to say, Darren, if they ever have a virtual long shot derby, he's going to be in there with Donnerell and Giacomo and a a few others. But
don't forget Country House. Don't forget Country House.
How soon we forget. In many ways, I tried to forget a lot of that last year, but it all worked out. But in 2009, this is a great story about how Benny Woolley, who's really Chip Woolley, by the way. I don't know if anybody even knew who Benny Woolley was. But please tell me the story of how you get in touch with the Mind That Bird camp and they wind up coming to Churchill.
Well, this was back in the day when we had the, American graded stakes earnings, or graded stakes earnings determined whether or not horses got into the Derby. But, it was very subjective as to, the publication of those of a true leaderboard. For example, if a publication like Daily Racing Form didn't deem this horse to be a serious candidate, they might not include him in the list that they're publicizing of here's the current rankings. And I knew a full list, and this was about 2-3 weeks, I think it was 2 weeks in advance of the Derby. And I'm just a kind of a double check nerd, with these different types of things. And I saw Mind That Bird had a north of $200,000 in graded stakes earnings. He didn't show up on anybody's possible list, but I said, I'm going to find the number for Benny L. Chip Woolley. and I found his number, called him up. I asked for Benny. He said, "This is Chip." I said, "No, I need to speak to Benny, please." No, this is Benny. But call me Chip. I mean, nobody knew he was Chip at the time. Yeah. And I explained to him, the situation. I asked, what are your plans with Mind That Bird? And he said he was intending to run in the Lone Star Derby, which, if my memory is correct, I think it was run a week after the Kentucky Derby that year.
Right.
And I said, okay, well, that's good to know. Good luck with them. I just wanted you to know that I think I have you ranked about 14th, 15th in the graded stakes earnings list, and was just wondering whether you're thinking about the Kentucky Derby at all. Chip paused, and he said, "I'll tell you what, why don't you call me back in 5 minutes?" Hang up the phone. I call him back in 5 minutes. He clearly called the owners. And I called him right back, and he said, "We're coming." And they were unaware of where they were positioned within the top 20. And so for those of you that have seen the movie that was made 50-1 about the Mind That Bird story, you'll see a scene in there where there is a gray-haired gentleman that portrays Ben Huffman, our director of racing, making that phone call. It really was the publicist at Churchill Downs, but the writer and director of the movie didn't think it was sexy enough for the PR guy to make the call, so they made it a high-ranking racing official. But that's the story of Mind That Bird getting here to Churchill.
But all because of you, they win the Derby. That's it. I'm giving Darren Rogers all the credit.
No.
We know how Hollywood is. They gloss over things, they skew things, but Darren should have been in that movie. I'm in the end, like in the walking, because I actually walked over with Chip that day. Not because we thought he would win, just because it was a great story that he drove, like 22 hours on one foot. He had a broken foot, and he drives the van, from New Mexico. And the producer called me at Darren and said, I just want you to know it's a courtesy call that you're going to be in the final credits. You're going to be doing the interview. We thought it'd be good. And I said, well, that's great. I'm waiting for, what I'm waiting for. Okay. He goes, and just so you know, I bought the rights from NBC. And so you don't get paid anything, but I wanted to give you a courtesy that you're going to be. I said, well, that's just wonderful. That's just great. I'll be in the closing credits and, okay, great. Thanks.
That's excellent. It's excellent. It's just good to be a part of the Footnotes. That was such a remarkable story along the way.
Yeah,
and it was fun. And last year we celebrated the 10th anniversary of that. It's hard to believe it's 11 years ago now.
Yeah, it is. And I will see you on Saturday. It could just be you and me at Churchill Downs, because I'll be doing a report for the NBC show with Mike Tirico, Jerry Bailey, and Randy Moss.
Now, do I get a credit at the end for holding your iPhone when we film this for the broadcast? Is that, or do I need my agent to work on this?
You know what? You better, because you know how TV is. It's a lot like Hollywood. They'll mess you over in the final cut. Not me, but I'm talking about those other people, though, higher powers,
Absolutely.
Well, Darren, I look forward to it, man. It's always great to catch up. And, I just, as it continues to unfold and racing gets back to being and all that, I'm sure we'll talk again soon, and I will see you in just a few hours.
I'll see you in a few hours. And then don't forget, follow along the hashtag KY Derby at home. You can follow at Kentucky Derby on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram throughout the day. And then celebrate by watching that NBC telecast and have fun with that virtual derby and raise some money for COVID-19 emergency relief.
Excellent. Darren, thanks so much. We'll be back with more of the Horse Racing Show right after this. Welcome back to the Horse Racing Show, and thank you for tuning in this week. Thanks to our special guest, Rob Hyland from NBC Sports, Darren Rogers, Director of Communications from Churchill Downs. Tune in to NBC at 3 o'clock Eastern Time, 3 to 6 on Saturday. Yes, there will be a Kentucky Derby from 2015, the great start of the run of American Pharoah. And there will also be the virtual Kentucky Derby, all 13 Triple Crown winners matched up. I don't know who's going to win. I mean, this is like under lock and key. There may be a handful of people that actually know who's going to win this race. Now, I guarantee I'd say 98% of America thinks it's going to be Secretariat. I don't know. I'm just saying that's what I believe everybody will think.
I don't know. Justify did a pretty good run.
It'll be curious. Well, there's, some great ones like Whirl Away and Citation in there. People forget about Seattle Slew. It'll be fun. And that's what sports is all about, to have that debate. And afterwards, I'm sure there'll be a lot of debate, a lot of Twitter out there. No, this horse should have won it. This horse was better. That finished second or third than some of the others. And that's what it's all about, isn't it? Is to have that kind of conversation, good, bad, or indifferent. That's the beauty of sports. And thank you for tuning in again this week here on the Horse Racing Show, episode number 65. Thank you for keeping us going. We'll look back at the Arkansas Derby next week and talk more about that virtual Triple Crown Kentucky Derby. Thanks to Ben Chaffins, to Thomas Kenny. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Kenny Rice. We'll talk again next week.